This is Deborah Atkinson. Welcome to the Flipping 50 show, where I address your top questions and the things you struggle with most so you can have more energy and less decision fatigue about what to eat, how to move, and you can change your thoughts so you can flip 50 and have the life and the energy you love in this second half. Today, I'm super excited to invite or introduce you to my friend and guest, Sheree Clark from Fork in the Road. And she's got a little edgy flip on titles as well. So as Flipping 50 and Fork in the Road with a summit coming up called What the Fork, we're going to get along just fine. And Sheree is also a healthy living coach and lives in Central Iowa, my home state for the first 49 years of life. So we're giving Flipping 50 and Fork in the Road, both with a little bit of edge and attitude to you. And I know you're going to love her. Sheree and I have recently collaborated and met for her upcoming summit. So what the fork? And I'm excited to dive into the why behind her doing this and what she does with her every day and why this is so important. Sheree, welcome. So glad you're here today.
Thank you. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here. Woo!
And it's so fun, that here we are practically neighbors, right? Living in neighboring Ames and Des Moines in Iowa, Central Iowa. And it's not until I'm living in Boulder and you're in Des Moines that we meet.
Exactly. I know. It's the twists and turns of fate.
Something about life. So let's dive in right here because I love this title and all its implications. It's just so fun. You call your company Fork in the Road. And the very first time we met, actually, that was in my subject line in your email, and that's how you kind of on a busy day, you're scrolling through and it's like, boom, I'm going to open that one. What a cool name. So what's the inspiration behind that?
The reason I call my company Fork in the Road is because, there's a couple. I'll tell you the cool reason and then the truth that's buried underneath. So two little things here.
The dirt.
The dark part. So the cool part is that I believe that at any given moment, every one of us is at a fork in the road. And we think sometimes that it's the big stuff, like staying in a marriage or leaving it or moving out of state or taking a different job. We might think, do I do chemotherapy or do I do traditional treatments if I'm faced with a debilitating disease? So those certainly are big forks in the road. But in addition to that, every single person on the planet faces forks in the road at every day and practically every given moment. So it could be, for example, things like, do I have dessert or do I skip it? Do I rely on coffee today, or can I maybe do a little exercise and get my my engines revving? Those kinds of things. And sometimes there are decisions about things like the environment. Do I compost or do I just throw this in the trash? So I like to believe that my company and my coaching addresses people where they're at in every one of those forks in the road. And that I think that the quality of your life is the accumulation of all of the little forks as much or more than the big forks. So that's kind of where the name came from.
Super cool. Yeah. Okay. So what about the fork? Does it have any bearing on nutrition? So of course my mind goes there too. Is that a piece of it?
Yeah. That's actually perfect segue. It's almost like we wrote this, but which we didn't. But the secret part of it was, and you're very astute. Yes, the fork thing has to do with nutrition, but the reason that I came up with the name was because at the time I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I knew I was at a fork in the road. I was leaving a company that I had owned for 25 years with my now ex. A lot of things were going, off the rails for me. And I just said, well, Fork in the Road has a lot of flexibility to it. It's kind of like chicken soup for the soul. It became a spinoff, chicken soup for the teenagers, chicken soup for whatever the hell you want chicken soup to be for. So I thought Fork in the Road can be whatever I decide it is.
I love that. Really love that. Okay. So clearly you lived this life. So now you are turning around, kind of reaching out to somebody else saying, here's what's going on. This is not your first career. Tell us a little bit more about what it was you first did.
It's definitely not my first rodeo. And I flipped 50 a decade ago. So that'll tell you something. So I'm actually first generation college. So nobody else in my family, my immediate family, had gone on to second and anything after high school. And so for me, what I wanted to do, I thought I wanted to be a department store buyer. And the reason for that, for the females that are listening, that can relate,
The shoes, the shoes.
the shoes, and the shopping in general. Who doesn't love to shop? And I thought, if I can go shopping for a living with somebody else's money, I mean,
I'm in. Right.
perfect. But the reality is that that's not what it's like. That's not what it's about. It's not even close. And so I decided ultimately to go on to graduate school, got a master's degree because I wasn't ready to work. I didn't know what I was doing. Let's just be truthful.
That is such a good description of graduate school motivation. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like a good place to hide and kind of like treading water while I decided what I really wanted to do, or maybe that I would have some epiphany. And so I did that. And actually I was in graduate school for 2 years. It was a 2-year program. And when I graduated, I had a master's degree in counseling and higher education. And I ended up moving. I got that from the University of Vermont. And I ended up accepting a job at Drake University, which, as you know, is right here in Des Moines, Iowa. And what I said to them when they hired me, and what I said aloud to all of my friends back east, was, I'm not going to take my New York State driver's license and cash it in for Iowa. I'm leaving my license plates on my car. I'm going to be back before the sun rises, suns and sets, on 2 Christmases. I'll be back. But here's the thing. I fell in love with the people of the state of Iowa. I loved my job at Drake. My boss was amazing and let me do things and encouraged me and fostered me. And I had found a place that felt like home. And so I didn't go back east. I stayed out here. For 5 years, I worked in that job. And ultimately, as what happens sometimes with our first jobs, particularly when you're young, it didn't fit anymore. And I didn't want to go necessarily, but I felt I was becoming stale. And at late 20-something, it was too young. I was too young to be stale. And so I gave my notice. I gave them a year in notice. I said, I'm going to leave next year at this time, which gave Universe plenty of time to present opportunities to me. So within short order, pretty much, I met a young man who would become both my business partner and my relationship partner pretty much the same week. And we began a business together. And it was very successful. And it was awesome. And it was amazing. And the first 10 years were fabulous. And then the 4 after that were okay. And then we went our separate ways personally, but we kept in the business together. Like, I know your mouth just dropped open.
No, it didn't. And I bet that there's a lot of people listening. I'm hoping that there are. I moved out here a couple of years ago, and my ex-husband actually stayed and looked after my house, which was not yet under contract. And people are just amazed that can happen. But I think then there are some other ones that get it. Yeah. So I think that's super cool.
Yeah, it was cool because the personal relationship wasn't working any longer, but the fact of the matter was the business relationship did. And so to me, it's like with anything in life, keep what works. And if pieces of it don't, well, then don't do that anymore. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And so that was a fork in the road for me. The fork in the road was stay or go, do all, do nothing, do part. And that worked. And it worked for 11 subsequent years, bringing us to 25 years total, owning this advertising agency with him. And then that feeling that I had at Drake, where I still like this, but I don't love it, and I'm getting stagnant. But here's the thing. it's a lot different when you're in your 50s. And I was 53 when I started having those feelings, or actually when I started facing those feelings. I had had them for a long time leading up to that, which I'm sure everybody listening can understand and appreciate. You don't suddenly wake up and say, screw it, I don't want to do this anymore. It's usually, it's death by a thousand cuts. It's like, oh, this isn't as much fun. And, oh, I don't look forward to that. And, oh my God, do I really have to hire a new assistant? Can't this just be the way it was? And all of those things.
And I can't discipline myself or willpower myself through this anymore.
Yes. You've been there,
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't whip myself into fake enthusiasm one more week, month, year. Oh the idea of it just made me shut down. And I knew, as you know, that those things are what make us sick. And that kind of a living in that, and I was making good money. I had a lifestyle that people would envy. I traveled. I had great clients. I was writing books. Like, I was on top of the world as far as everybody was concerned. But it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. What matters is that inside, my soul was saying, sister, this is not working, and you're going to get sick or develop an addiction or something. You got to get out.
Wow. And you did it. And I love just listening to you say these things. And I think potentially, if listeners can take this in as, I just reinforce what she said, and we've done some parallels in our lives. We should chat. But, it gives people permission when they hear you say, oh, it's okay. It's okay. If you're feeling this way, this is actually pretty normal. And, we need to hear that sometimes, because we stay quiet sometimes around the people that are closest to us. And until we actually hear someone else say, no, you can actually do this. There are lots of different forks in the road, and you can take any one of them.
Yes. And not only is it normal to feel that way, I think it's good, because if I had never had those feelings, I might still be at Drake University. And there's not that there would be anything wrong with that, but to have spent my entire career in one place when I have had the luxury and the opportunity to, as I said, I've written books, I've traveled, I've spoken, I've done things that might not have happened for me at Drake, met people I wouldn't have met. And the time that the scary part is the part when you can utter aloud to a trusted other, I don't think this is working anymore. Can we talk about it? That's the hard moment. That's the moment of truth. But the good news is that from that point forward, you're propelling in a forward motion, and the universe has got your back. And the people around you, pick the people that you trust and have faith in, and just keep moving forward, and don't stay with something that is okay.
Right. Oh, so true. And as I'm having flashbacks here and kind of getting chills, I can remember back 17 years ago as I was going through my coach training, and I remember a term that was said, and I have never forgotten it. But so I can substitute this. If you have family in the room, y'all cover their ears. So, but some of these situations they're scary. You're in a place that isn't comfortable anymore, and yet it still is what we call the comfort zone. And changing to the new is still much more uncomfortable than staying. It's a challenging situation. And I remember a coach first telling to me, that is it's an AFGO. Do you know where I'm going, Sheree? Another forking growth opportunity, right?
Yep.
It's one of those things when that is exactly when you're gonna be the caterpillar blooming out of that to be the butterfly.
Yes. And it's never as bad as we imagine it to be. When John, my former business partner, and I were dissolving our personal relationship, because everything in our lives were so intertwined, financially, socially, the business, all of it. My fear was that when we unraveled that, I would be left nothing, with, like no personality, no persona.
Identity and yeah.
Yeah, all of that, and that I wouldn't be able to afford to stay in the house, which I ultimately did, and still am in, and keep that up myself. That I wouldn't be able to. I just kept, and every day I would come up with a new scenario of what was going to be the thing that took me down. And then eventually you realize that those fears are fears you're inventing. And you can keep those at bay, and you make it through one more thing. You figure out how to get the lawnmower to start yourself, victory. And
That with me, it was the snowblower.
there you go.
Right. So we were sitting at a basketball game, watching my son, side by side, which, people can't find that believable either. But, I was sitting there telling him, I got to go home. I got to finish shoveling the sidewalk. I didn't get that done. He said, well, didn't you use the snowblower? And because I got that as we split up. And I said, I couldn't get it started. He said, well, did you plug it in? And I said, did I what? I'm taking you back to court. You mean it's electric start? I was like, are you kidding? It's a big victory. Yeah.
Yes. But then nobody understands why you're grinning from ear to ear, and you're like, oh, I got it.
Right. Big win. Okay. So we met when you interviewed me for your upcoming summit. So this interview series that you call What the Fork. Let's talk about this, and I love where this is going, but what's the real goal of the series? So listeners, people who join in, what do we want for them? What's the objective?
Okay, so this is the second year I've done this, and the first year was wildly successful. And so what I've done is I've put together a panel of experts in the areas that I address in my coaching, which really, as we've indicated now, because it's nutrition, yes. So I have people that obviously deal with food and that, but every other aspect of life impacts another aspect of life. So anything to do with the body, I've got an expert for. So obviously physiology, exercise, food, nutrition. Then we've got some experts that talk about specific ailments, thyroid concerns and conditions, women's issues like menopause. And then we've got fun people that, and everybody, yeah, that's a terrible thing to say. We've got fun people that bring in like kind of the mystical and the bizarre. So I have one woman who I've not interviewed yet. We're scheduled to talk next week, and she's from New Zealand, and she analyzes you based on what your favorite song is. So,
wow.
Yeah. So things like that. I'm interviewing a Hay House author who co-authored a book with her mom, and it's all about food and the mystical parts of food and what it all means. And she deals with things on more than just a recipe level. And so you'll have to listen to her. So it's fascinating, the angles that people bring. Not all my experts agree on everything, which makes it even more juicy. So I'll interview somebody one day, and then the next day somebody will say something that may not be exactly in keeping with that. And I think that that's great because it allows our listeners to tune into their own intuition and say, you know what? Just like I was saying with the fork in the road, I'm going to keep that part of it because it makes sense to me and dismiss that other part. And then that other thing that other person said, I'm going to do the same thing with that. So the takeaway is having all kinds of tools in your toolkit that might not have been there before to evaluate what maybe you want to be your next goal. What area of your life do you want to work on next? Which one of our experts, if any, could be of value to you? Who do you want to meet, follow, learn more about and from? So it's exciting, and I love it. It's an audio series, so you can take it with you. Part of the reason I do audio is that I love to walk, and I will just listen to podcasts like this one, an interview series when I'm off doing something, or I'm in the kitchen chopping vegetables, and I sure don't want to be looking up at a monitor. So, I'm just thrilled, and I'm thrilled that you are one of my featured experts, and I loved our time together on the air. And so yeah, it's a great series, and thank you for asking me about it.
Well, yes, and I'm not at all offended that you listed exercise and physiology first and then the fun people later. But okay, so I love that. You know what? It sounds like, like a great cocktail party. You have all these people coming with a diverse background, and yet you're going to find every one of them interesting for different reasons. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And we've got cocktails and mocktails because we want everybody to have a good time.
I love that. I love that. And you've listed the topics so well. And let's make sure the dates of the summit are when.
It kicks off on May 1st, 2017, and it runs the entire month. So
Mayday.
May Day. So you've got the whole month of May, and at the very end. And I'm releasing one expert a day. So that's the nice part. You don't have to try to. I hate those ones where you try to cram them all in, and then I never.
Like we'd have a life too, right? Yes, I know. I love this. This is doable. And this also, people, this could be your challenge for the month of May.
Yes.
You have to go for a walk while you listen.
And what a perfect month to do it in. It's not too hot. It's not cold. And here's the other fabulous thing. Each one of my guests has offered our listeners a free gift. So in addition to the great interviews with workable, usable tips that you can just put into action right away, because I make sure I ask questions that have some practical nature to them. I'll say, well, what would you suggest a person do with this condition or question or situation? Each of the gifts also has a value. So you can retrieve that and enjoy that once the series is over.
Love that. Okay, now we need to give the URL, and listeners who I'm sure are walking, this will be in the show notes, so you don't have to stop and write this down on your underwear band. But Sheree, what's the summit URL where they can sign up?
Well, get ready to smile, and because this encompasses the fun people and the physiology people, and that URL is whattheforkareyouvaitingfor.com. Which just sounds like a long URL, which flies in the face of everything the experts will tell you. But how could you forget what the fork are you waiting for? And that's fork, F-O-R-K, .com. So, and like you said, you'll have it printed so that we don't have to remember that. If you don't get bit by a dog or hit by a car.
Exactly. Or stopped by a policeman, right? Okay. Yeah. All right. Love it. Okay. So that definitely will be in the show notes. Sheree, I'm going to put your contact information, any social link that you'd prefer for people to follow you. Where's the best place for them to get more Sheree?
I think the best place to start would be my website, and that is www.fork-road.com. And from there, you can link. I have a YouTube channel that I put new content on every week, and all kinds of goodies. But you can get there from that main URL.
Perfect. Love it. All right. Before we wrap up, so tell me, without using names, of course, so we're going to honor confidentiality, but a recent ideal client came to you because why?
I have actually lots of fascinating clients, and one of my really awesome, inspiring ones came to me because she was tipping the scales at over 300 pounds. Mm. And realized, and she's actually, we're not only the same age, our birthdays are 2 days apart.
Wow.
Kind of cool. And so she realized that the weight it's not about, when we're of a certain age, it's no longer about the skinny jeans. Not that we don't care how we look, but that when life becomes difficult because it's difficult to get out of bed, or you are embarrassed because you have to fly first class because this coach seats will not accommodate your body frame. Those are the kinds of things that make the quality of someone's life significantly altered, significantly reduced. And so when someone comes to you with that kind of a responsibility, you don't take it lightly. And she's at work on herself, and she's making progress, and it's not a quick fix by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm not sure, I don't believe in quick fixes anyway. And I believe in addressing the underlying issues, and it's not about, just eat fewer calories and burn off more with exercise. It's beyond that. It's other things. And she's an inspiration because I've watched her emerge from her cocoon and become more alive. And that's why we do this.
That's so why we do this. I love that. Last but not least, I put everybody I talk to on the spot. It's just what I do. Is there a question you wish I would have asked you?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Maybe if you ask me, and I'll put myself on the spot here. So what's next for Sheree?
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking for that. And right now I just finished a personal development program that was 4 months of, it's called emotional intelligence training. And it meant me traveling quite a bit for a 4-month period of time, very focused, very rigorous training. Challenging. There were times I wanted to quit, but I'm not a quitter. And really makes you face your junk and your stuff. And so, right now, what I'm doing with that is I think that what happens when we make changes, and you and I are in the change business, you'll find a place where you feel comfortable, but you have to make sure that you don't either relapse or get complacent. Mm-hmm. And so for me right now, what I'm working on is I'm working on me. And I guess I wanted to share that because I think when you hire a coach, when you work with somebody that to help you become a better person, you want to find somebody that is doing that same thing, that's walking the talk. If you didn't exercise one lick, if you ate a lot of junk food, if you chain smoked, I would have a hard time trusting you with my needs. And so I guess I want to be clear about that. I'm telling listeners, I'm telling you, I'm also telling me that what I do is important. It's what I do for me is just as important because it helps me be good at what I do.
Love that. So still on the journey, always on the journey.
Yes.
That's awesome. Sheree, thanks so much for being here. If you're listening and there's a question you wish I'd have asked or you have for us, submit your question. Just leave it below the show link at flipping50.com and join us on the Facebook fan page at Flipping50TV. If you enjoyed the show, please leave me a rating in iTunes. It really helps. And then share this with a friend so you can surround yourself with a supportive community of women on the same journey. What are you waiting for? Start Flipping 50 today.